And so and so there's a lot to talk about this morning. I do have a guest. My guests will be calling in, and that will be Mr. Larry Ellis from Mamleo, which is heard here every Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Listen to Mamleo. You'll get a lot of information. So first off, I want to talk about Tuesday. And what day is Tuesday? Tuesday is election day. It's the primaries, but it's still election. And from what I can see, you know how they always say, oh, it's going to be a low turnout? It's probably going to be a low turnout. But because nobody knows who's running, the only visible person I see out there is Russell Holmes. And that's because I see his signs everywhere. And so this is an election year that we have a lot of state rep and state senators that are not being challenged. So, but election day is September the 3rd, which is this Tuesday. And you can so if you want to vote in the primaries, it's too late to register. But if you want to vote in the general election, the date is October 26th. That's the last day you can register to vote. So we have some races. We have two interesting races that seem like people are really talking about, and that's the Superior Judicial Clerk position that's open, and that is Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy. They are running for that seat. And we also have a very interesting governor's council seat. I think this is the first time I have heard people be excited about the governor's council race, and that's because Stacey Borden, who is the founder of New Beginnings, is running. So she's running against, I think, a 32-year incumbent, but we've seen them get beat before too. So I want to talk about a little bit about Blue Hub Capital. For those of you all who listen to me, I've been working with the National Coalition Against Predatory Lending, and so there's a bill that they're trying to pass. There's a section 256. It's the House is 4808, and Senate 2869. So we it says do not allow free get out of jail card. Section 256 of the Economic Development Bill is only to provide Blue Hub Capital with immunity for its previous predatory lending shared appreciation mortgage. Blue Hub Capital is being sued for its predatory shared appreciation mortgage. Blue Hub Capital's Elise Cherry is using the legislature to obtain immunity from consumer protection laws. This is unprecedented, undermining the rule of law, setting the precedents for special favors for special donors who put the Massachusetts legislature as the go-to entity for bailing out people and organizations subject to litigation. Let the courts decide the case. Oates, ETALV, Blue Hub Capital on September 10th. For more information, contact ncapl@yahoo.com. So we have a phone call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, my sister. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Larry. How are you?
I am well.
It's good to hear your
speed dating
voice.
this morning.
Yes, you're what, speed dating? Well, I was trying to make my little announcements before you came in. You came
go
in
ahead.
early,
Just wanted to let you know I was there.
Okay, thank you. And so we're asking people to be down at the courthouse on September 10th to see what they say about this predatory lending that's been going on for a while. I also want to talk about, announce the back to school cookout and giveaway. Join us September 1st, that's this Saturday, time 1:30 p.m., location 2 Washington Street. Sponsored by Torchlight Recovery and Muhammad Moss number 11, and the Black Male Advancement ACCFSS Mass Ministry of Justice. There's going to be ice cream, backpacks, hot dogs, mentors, sneakers, burgers. So come on out, get a backpack, a hot dog, and get some mentoring. Also, the road to hope. Recovery leads to hope. Join us for a powerful community event celebrating the journey of recovery. This Recovery Day event is dedicated to the inspiring work of Katie H. Portis. Free food, live entertainment, vendors, resources, and more. September 25th, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Free at the Roxbury Boston Public Library. And that's sponsored by Recovery Services, Multicultural AIDS Coalition, Inc. And for more information, please email Katrina Cooley at ccooley@bphc.org. So those are my announcements for today. Before you got on, Larry, I was talking about voting day, which is what we're going to talk about today. So how are you this morning?
I'm good. Just before we get into it's interesting, you talk about the backpack giveaway. Mamleo had their annual one yesterday out in Dorchester down in Lower Mills.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, they are always well received and well attended.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the people that show up, it's just really saddening. You talk about the hot dogs, we had hot dogs, hamburgers, the ice cream trucks, the backpacks and all that. And people come out in droves. And
Right.
I wish I could see that same enthusiasm, one, when it comes to their kids' education, one, what's happening in their community. For instance, we have a program that since I've retired, the Boston Tea League, in which we're trying to get this violence reduction as a funding, it's all fully funded training for staff members in the Boston Public Schools to help them identify this and also kind of act as a hub in tying all of these. Marcus Anthony Hall is a community caretaker that's part of this, right, that we've teamed up with, and we've had more success getting partnered with community stakeholders than the people who are actually charged with educating our children in the Boston Public Schools, and to set a fully funded program. But this goes to our folks and how we approach what we think is important, right, where you're not going to probably have a backpack left at your event, as we pretty much didn't have at ours yesterday.
Right.
But if we could just get that enthusiasm, good
segue exactly
into voting.
Voting and their children's education, as you
said. Right.
But just imagine if, if that could happen, if the parents came out to vote, as well as go up to their school, the children's school, to find out what is actually going on in these schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right, but that's the thing, is that we don't see the value. We see the value in the book bags and the hot dogs and giveaways, and when Manuel does the turkeys, we see the value in that, but we don't. We have an election every year in the Commonwealth, either at the state, federal, or local level.
Yeah.
And
so there's no excuse. There's really no excuse, Larry, because people know every year we're going to have an election. So you would think that they would start preparing themselves. I just don't know what it's going to take to get our folks to really take this serious. Because on the local level, we could be doing a lot better, and on the state level.
Correct. Well, I think, sadly, we've seen folks who just could not participate or chose not to. We're seeing them being displaced, right? Gentrification is real. Mm-hmm. It's happening in real time. Elections have consequences, right? And
yes.
I think people kind of say it,
and
it's not hyperbole, that this election coming up at the federal level is so consequential as far as what happens with us, whether we're going to regress. Because people have been seeing all the warning signs of not participating in elections, and what's happening here in Boston, for instance, where the recent Boston Globe article said that, to be able to afford to buy a home in the city of Boston, you need to be making $217,000, and the median income is around $100,000, where you're not even halfway there. right? And if you have a family and you're trying to survive, there are very few people making that kind of money in the city of Boston. So people are moving out of the city,
Yeah.
and a lot of that has to do, like it just came out yesterday. Boston is the fifth most expensive city in the country. The fifth most expensive city, only behind New York and San Francisco.
Wow.
We know how long that's been. So we've seen this trend, and that has to do with also with the education. If you don't have a good education, you can't compete, right?
Yeah.
We spend $1.4 billion in the schools every year, the budget, and it's increasing every year.
Right. And
we
what
still
are
don't
we
have an
getting?
elected school committee.
What are
Well,
we getting
Right,
for that
But
1
we-
point something billion dollars?
right. But we talked about, so you talk about elections, and people said, "Hey, we wanted an elected school committee," right?
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened, and I still don't understand that. You know, for we said that we wanted it. She said she knew that we wanted it. She agreed that we wanted it, but yet she turned around and did something totally different.
Right, but she's up for re-election next year if she runs, and she won't pay a price for it. Mayor Wu will not pay a price for it, right?
Well, I don't know.
I haven't heard
I don't know. I will. We have to wait and see. I don't want to say because I feel like it's somebody needs to pay a price for it. You know.
Well, someone is paying the price for it, Priscilla. It's our kids.
Yes. Yeah. Not a good price either.
Right.
But you know what, Larry? I don't know if you had planned on talking about the PAC, if you was gonna get one.
Yeah, so that's a great. Yeah, so what we did is we're going to try to do our part. With United Communities, we started a political action committee. Some former presidents and members of MAMLEO that were former presidents of MAMLEO. We realized that the key component that was missing from our tool bag is we do the advocate. Is we don't have a political voice in the city of Boston. We don't have a political voice really in this state. And we count on our politicians to do the work for us. One, there are a few that are willing to do it, but there's not enough of them. But there are more of us than there are of them, right?
Yeah.
So we now we feel like we're going to do our part. We're going to be raising money, and we're going after the seats. I tell them it's not personal with any of these people because I don't have any personal relationships with them. But what we're going to do is start giving them report cards, and we're going to start holding people accountable, first of all ourselves, by starting this and saying, look, we need to do better. We can no longer operate getting one person elected and hoping they're going to solve our problem.
Exactly.
We're going to have to do this in a united front. That's why it's called United Communities, because that's what it's going to take. All of us are suffering. We're just suffering in silos.
Right,
and they're telling us that, well, the reason we don't do it for this group is because we have to take care of the other group, not knowing that because we don't speak to each other, not realizing that all of us are getting conned.
Right. We're all getting crumbs off the table.
Not even crumbs. We're not even at the table.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. But you know what? I think that PAC is going to make a difference. I think that we, as community in Boston, there are some of us that are really about this work and are really about, what we say we're about. And so I just think that we, going forward, we need to see, what the numbers are on primary. But we know, I mean, no, like I said, nobody even know that there's an election. No one is even paying no attention as much as we have election every year. I said the only way you know that there's election because you see Russell Holmes signs all over the place. But other than that, you wouldn't even know. But now we see some of Stacy Borden's signs, and we also see Allison Cartwright. Also see some out there for Erin Murphy. You see, she took her city councilor's sign and changed it and made it for the Superior Justice Judicial Clerk, which is the position that she's running for now. So tell me, Larry, how do you get reelected in January, and then you decide in March, I'm going to run for this other position? I mean, I got an issue. I really have an issue with that. I mean, that's what you want to do. But to me, I mean, so the promises that you made when you ran last year, those were just, what, lies? for lack of a better word.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because when former city councilor Charles Yancey was running for mayor as well as the city council seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, he did the unsuccessful attempt at the mayor's position. He was able to retain his seat as city councilor.
Mm-hmm.
They passed what they call the Yancey rule, which says you can't run for mayor and city council at the same time. But they did not modify that to where you couldn't run for any other office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in agreement. I think that if you're running for an office separate from the one that you're already elected to,
Mm-hmm.
the taxpayers should not be paying your salary to campaign for something else.
Exactly.
And we see that quite a bit, right? Because we know that once they're doing that, that's their full-time commitment.
Yes.
Right?
They're not
if
thinking
I'm
about what they're getting ready to leave. They're thinking about
Right.
where they're going.
But not only that, if you're a city worker, Priscilla,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to run for office, right,
Mm-hmm.
while you're a city worker, you can't even do it on your off time. You have to take a leave of absence.
Right, exactly.
Right? So
Yeah.
why shouldn't politicians be able to continue to be paid
Right.
to campaign for a separate office? And
Yeah.
as a city employee, you can't even do it, again, on your own time.
But
The hypocrisy is just so glaring.
yes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just don't. Boston is a strange place. Where like we have a lot of good people have come from Boston and have lived in Boston, and I was during my summer program. I had asked some of my youth to research some of the people that were, I call them our heroes in our lifetime. Like the Elmer Lewis, like the Melina Cass, Chuck Turners, Mel King.
Pastor
those
Wall.
Yeah. Thank God Pastor Wall's still here, and that's why he got to write that book.
Yeah.
He over here nodding his head.
No, he's very modest, and I know he's he doesn't like that praise and stuff, but he's deserving of it, right?
Yeah.
They always say give people their flowers while they're still here, so they can smell them.
That's right.
He is someone that really people like him and Billy Sylvester, and watching them working together, right? And Georgette Watson, drop a dime.
Yeah.
There was a cooperation. There was our political leaders were working on our behalf. We didn't always agree. There was never always a love fest. But there was a spirit of understanding at the end of the day. It wasn't so much about the individual as it was about the communities that they were elected to represent.
Exactly.
They would stand up for that.
Yep.
It's just the opposite now.
It is.
And they get rewarded for it, and they don't pay a price for not doing what they're supposed to do.
I know it. That's the thing. They just keep getting reelected. Just like Pastor, let me see that ballot sheet.
Well, perfect example. So while you're looking for, Mayor Wu ran. And it's just very chilling, right? When I hear her words when she said part of the reason she was running because as a city councilor she felt she wasn't heard, that she was almost invisible in the council, right? And now she turns around and she's doing the same thing to people as the mayor, where she claimed she didn't like being done to her, to be felt invisible. And the thing she ran on, fixing mass and cast, right? Also the schools, right? Well, the housing. These things are in worse shape now than they were. And I'm not blaming her for all of that. But,
right.
She claimed that she had solutions to these problems. And these problems have only exacerbated, and they're getting worse. I mean, when she came in, the average price for a home was $700,000, which was not attainable. Now it's close to $1 million for a home in the city of Boston. Right? And Mass and Cass, that problem, they fenced off a lot of it down there. That was another one of her staples, and all it's done is reallocated it across the city, and mainly in communities of color.
Right.
Is that these people are now on Melnia Cass, sleeping out, hanging out. They're down in Nubian Square and other parts of the city. So the problem is addressed. Right.
Mattapan Square.
Right.
And they're only in our communities.
Right. The immigrants coming into the city, overwhelmingly, and they we're welcoming first, and now the welcome mat has been yanked up, right? And they're saying, hey,
Yeah,
you're on
you
your own.
gotta
People
go.
are
Yeah,
sleeping
yeah.
outside because of the way it's set up, that if you take assistance for more than 5 days, you're not eligible for housing. So it forces people to not take assistance that they need. With they're sleeping in public places with children. We're the summer, but we're going to start heading into the fall and the colder weather. And I saw it at the tail end before I left, where during all these protests, people were coming in, and we were staging at the transportation building downtown. And around 6 o'clock, all these families would come in, and they were sleeping on cots or sleeping in the lobby in all these public buildings that were open at the airport.
I know.
This is not a third world country. People should not have to be treated that way.
You're right. But those that have the power, that's the problem. The wrong people are in charge.
Well, when you say those that have the power, those that have the power are really the people, but we don't exercise it, right? So we basically relinquish it to politicians and assuming they're going to take care of our problems.
Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. We have to do it for ourselves. I see all these people that are on the on this ballot, and half of them aren't even being. No one's being challenged. It looks like Elizabeth Warren, she's running, she got a pass. Ayanna Pressley, she running, she got a pass. The governor's council, we have Chris Ionella Jr. I think he's been there at least 30-something years. We got Stacey K. Borden. We have Ronald Premor Ikabuka. I don't know. Then Senator in General Court. This is Norfolk and Suffolk District. Michael Rush. Then we have Representative in General Court, Rob Consalvo. Then we have Clerk of Supreme Judicial Court, Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy, which Erin Murphy is our
current. So is that
current.
the same Rob Consalvo that's the state rep? Is he running for something else again?
No, he run for his seat again.
As what?
He's a state rep.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something else.
No, for the 14th Suffolk District. Remember he took that seat.
Oh, right.
I forgot Pastor, what was your old state rep name? Scasio or something like that? Right. And Rob Consalvo took his spot, right? Yeah. And and then we have Clerk of Superior Court Civil Business, and we got Johnny Powers III and Fatina Kathy Gabrielle. And then we got Clerk of Superior Court Criminal Business, Mara Hennigan. I didn't even know she was still in the around, like doing this type of work.
The thing about those positions, right? Most people don't even know that they're elected positions, but they pay very well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are jobs where there's no heavy lifting. Actually, you're a politician, but no one's looking for you as if you're the mayor or the state rep or the city council.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of them pay close to $200,000 a year, right?
Mm-mm.
And you have a very small staff. You a very good pension coming at some point in time.
Then you got Registry of Deeds Stephen Murphy. He was used to be the city councilor.
Mm-hmm.
At large, was there for years.
Remember, how many offices he run for?
Right.
He ran for city council, for sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Now he's Registry of Deeds, and we got Registry of Probate. It says vacancy. Stephanie Everett. I don't know why it says vacancy like that, but Stephanie Everett, I think she was appointed by I guess it would be the governor that appoints.
And what is she running for?
The Registry of Probate. Steve Murphy's the Registry of Deeds. Stephanie's the Registry of Probate.
And most people don't even know what these jobs entail.
Exactly.
Right. And most of them have no background whatsoever in these fields. They just see it as a bigger payday.
Mm-hmm. I think I don't know why. Was it because oh, it's Arroyo, Felix Arroyo Sr. He stepped down, I think,
Hmm.
and she was appointed. Stephanie was
Right.
appointed to that job. So now I guess she has to run for it.
Hmm.
You know, but it's not it's hmm, it's not a lot going on in the city. So
Well,
people,
it is, but
eh, I know everybody's thinking about the presidential election and stuff, and that's very important. But if we could get our local people together and get them to do right, then we could have more influence in Washington D.C. You know.
we could, but again, it starts with, like I said, if we get as many people that are coming out for backpacks and multiple backpacks that know every single organization that is giving away backpacks and hot dogs and hamburgers this week, right? If we can get those same people to take that same energy, right? And think about it. Elections are one day. These backpack giveaways is probably 10, 15 different organizations, and they make
There
sure they get
is.
to
There's
all of
a
them. But
yeah.
they can't
There's
get
a lot
to
of
the
them.
polls one day.
Yes, there a lot of them. Everybody should. You know what they should offer? Every one of those backpack giveaways, they should have someone registering people to vote.
Or
And
maybe we
talk.
should do it at a polling place, right, out front of their election day, instead of giving them away before school starts back. It's only a few days difference, right? Maybe I'm going to suggest that to Mammoth Hill, that we do our backpack giveaway at polling sites, right? So
Yeah, I
at least
bet
if they're
you.
there, they might
Yeah,
go
that's
inside.
a good. Unfortunately, that's a good idea. They should have did that with the turkeys too. You know, when you think,
Right.
when someone had said that they need to bring some of those services into the schools to get the parents there. You know, like when you have to go to DTA, or when you have to go get your food stamps, or instead of going into a building, go into the schools. That way you're in there, you can see what's going on,
Mhm.
and you can get your services that you need.
Yeah, but I think in a lot of ways we've made it too easy for people, and so that they're depending on someone else to do it all for them, right? Because this really isn't that difficult. The blueprint is there; it's been there. Like I said, I was fortunate as you were to be around people like Pastor Wall and those folks and Billy, and watching how law enforcement, elected officials, community activists work
Work
together.
together, right.
That doesn't happen today, right? Even on the political side, right? I mean, like what they put out, those little sandwich boards that people don't even pay attention to, if they're not falling over, that says there's an election coming up next week. Like I said, and it should be a legal holiday.
Right. Or done on another day, not a weekday. Done. Maybe like they should move election day to Saturdays. You know.
I don't think it would, sadly, Priscilla, I don't think it would improve, because you can see that when people feel like they think that they're getting something for nothing, right? Which not understanding elections is bigger than the backpack, right? That they don't come out for those things. They don't see the value in that. They see the value in material things. And we have to get away from that. That, you know what? If you're able to get your child educated, maybe you don't have to stand in that line for that backpack. Maybe you can proudly go and buy what your child needs, right? Instead of standing in line and complaining about what you're not doing, or why you can't afford to live in a community that you lived in all this time. And that's not changing. I think we'll start to see an improvement, because the people that are coming in and that are replacing the folks in these communities, they're not going to be wanting to pay higher taxes and not have a safe community. They're not going to be paying higher taxes and have to send their children to private schools. So we will see the change. We just won't be the benefits of the folks who have gone through the worst of it.
Right. Well, I don't know, Larry. I just, I know change is gonna come. Change is coming, and I really would like to see some people, some incumbents that's been in there for years and years, moved out the way. Because it just seems like it's the same old, when you think about it. Just like this situation with Blue Hub and what's going on. This woman, Elise Cherry, from what I'm understanding, looking at the OPCF, is it OCPF? One, the where you go look at all people's contributions and who's given to who. She's given to a lot of our elected officials, and it's a shame and a disgrace. That some of them are now turning their back and don't want to have, anything to do with them. But it's like the same old thing. We keep going through the same old cycle, and it's like,
well, again, there are no consequences, right? When you look at, people get elected here, it's very rarely that they don't get to keep their seat. If they want to run for re-election, they can stay there almost as long as they want. That it's very rare that they do. And usually, if it is someone that does get re-elected, it's usually someone that may have had our best interest. And Charles Yancey is a perfect example of that. Is they came after him and Chuck Turner, the few that held their ground, right? And we're seeing that now, that she's become a target with Julia Mejia, right? Ben Weber, who I think is a very good activist, before he came there, he was fighting a lot of issues in our community on behalf of Mamrio. So we were very happy to support someone like that, right? And I think he looks out for the whole city, as a city councilor, even though he represents the district. He sees it broader than that. He's been exposed to that. A lot of times these people come in, they're not experienced.
And a lot of times, not to cut you off, but another thing too, a lot of them aren't from here, weren't born and raised here.
No.
And so
including the mayor.
Exactly. So they don't even really know the history. They may know it, but they haven't lived it. And so it's just messy sometimes. It really is.
Right. It is. Again, I don't know if we can change it. Sadly, I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetime.
Right. We probably not going to see it.
It's really sad that how, little attention we pay to the problems we complain about, right? And we do nothing. And really, it starts at the ballot box.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the least you can do is go vote. That's the least you could do.
If people didn't think it was important, they wouldn't be trying to deprive you of the right to have a right. You see that they're trying to suppress it in some of these more conservative states across the country, right? Mm-hmm. And people feel like, well, I live in Massachusetts and I live in Boston, so I'm safe. It's not safe, because when they pass these national bans on things that people care about, it's going to be too late. You just can't unring the bell.
Right.
A perfect example is when the tax reforms that came in and people didn't realize how it was going to impact them. And now they're seeing it. Now, luckily, some of those expire this year, but a lot of homeowners, most people that have mortgages are the middle class, right? If you're a rich person, you can pay cash for a house. You don't carry a mortgage. The interest on equity line, those are things that people look forward to at the end of the year, right? Their taxes. Go back to when the reform started. You should be able to write off sales tax on your taxes, right? Most people that had credit card interest used to be deducted.
Yep. You used to be able to deduct all that stuff.
Right.
Now you can barely deduct your mortgage.
Exactly, Priscilla. That's something. And there's a cap on your taxes. If you live outside the city of Boston, you're paying more than most people are paying, more than $10,000 in property taxes, right? So all of these things that used to help you out a little bit in easing the pain are no longer available, and sadly, people are voting against their own interest.
Yep. And they don't know it.
Yeah. Because a lot of times, too, sadly, we're seeing, in Boston where people, they were not homeowners, they were renting all of them.
Yep.
They're being displaced because they can't afford the new homes are being purchased by people. And a lot of these homes are being purchased by conglomerates who, it's not mom and pop, it's not just a family moving in. They're buying these houses in masses, and they're just keeping them and they're renting them out. So they're not even coming on the market. There's companies that are buying up homes and communities, and then they're renting them out for exorbitant amounts of rent, which that person can't afford, and they're not available to be sold. So and there's been no solution. Mayor Wu's been in, this is her first term. And if she runs again, she most likely will be reelected, unfortunately. But all the things she said she was going to do to improve the situation of the residents of Boston, not much is seen.
No.
They'll take credit for the crime being down, but we go through those peaks and valleys, right? If you're going to take credit for it when it goes down, then you have to own it when it goes up.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So this PAC is a way for us to get more involved. It was something I struggled with because, so I, like you, I am tired of being sick and tired, but I'm tired of watching it. You know, I could just be a spectator and say, I don't live in the city any longer. I grew up there. My family's doing well. I'm doing well. But that's the selfish approach. And this is why it bothers me, not that people need a backpack, but why you only come out for the giveaway and not coming out to vote. It makes no sense. Like I said, there were over 5,000 backpacks given away yesterday. And that's probably more than the people that voted in the last primary. And it will probably be more than people that vote next Tuesday.
That's
right?
sad.
In most of our communities, won't be 5,000 people voting.
I wish there was, you know, a way we could really, really turn that around. You know, I remember when people came back, I believe it was from the Million Man March, and they were on the brothers were on fire, and I believe I can't remember how it would take Ron Bell to tell how many people they actually got to vote, registered to vote, you know. And it just seems like for some reason when we have a plan, we don't follow it through, or we can't finish it, or we get caught up.
Well, because, Priscilla, we no longer have movements, we have moments, right? George Floyd was a moment, right, where we were all in Black Lives Mattered and all of the things, right, COVID. And it went away. We have the same problems, the same concerns, right? And then with just, like I said, we become in a moment and not a movement. That back then, we were in a movement because we all identified the problem, and somehow we feel like some of us have navigated out of it, and it doesn't affect me, so I'm not concerned with your problem. Because back in the day, it was still all a problem, and it will be again, all of our problems. But we're just not approaching it in the same manner.
Right. So we're gonna try to get this pack going. We're in the process of trying to bring people to the table that are really interested. You know, it's just so, you know, a lot of times we start off gung ho and then it dies down, and you know, it just fizzles out. But I remember, I didn't know a lot about it back then, but I knew there was a Black Political Task Force back in the day, and they worked together and they were able to, you know, get people elected. I mean, we, you know, look at we had the Owens, we had the Bolin family, you know, we had, you know, Diane Wilkerson, we had, you know, Councilor Yancey, you know, Chuck Turner, Mel King, you know, Doris Bunty. We had all these people, you know, that were not afraid to stand up and speak up for us.
No, to your point there, I remember a high-ranking official in the Boston Police Department said to me, there'll never be another Billy Sylvester. And I knew what he was talking about. Like, Billy had his faults. Everybody knew Billy was not a person. But one thing I can say about Billy, he really did care about the community, right? He was engaged, because I saw it as a Black police officer working under him, the opportunities that we had under his leadership, right? I'm not talking about his personal behavior. But what they meant was that he became too powerful, right? Because he had the support and the love of the community, and that was threatening to them. So now, if you're a Black person and you want to be in leadership, you must separate yourself from being that active, right? We just saw that with Eddie Crispin, you know, former deputy superintendent. We're seeing the attack on the memory of leadership with the current president, Dr. Jeffrey Lowe. So I saw it myself. Dr. Bradley saw it. So, and there is no support for people. So that's why you don't see people running for office, because the support isn't there for people who are doing the right thing. You know, you run for offices and others who it made sense to see them elected, right? But they come after them because they don't want anyone standing in the way.
They want the ones that can be bought and paid.
Total compliance.
Yeah, you know, go along to get along. You know, meanwhile, our community is being destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I still don't understand this reparations thing. I mean, yeah, we are entitled to reparations, and you know that shouldn't even be a question. They're doing all this research and doing this and doing that, and I really don't see them doing a whole lot of anything. It's you know, it 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 makes you wonder. Like, they've been doing this for this task force has been working now for 2 years, and what is the conclusion? And they're talking about doing all this research, and most of this research and stuff that they are talking about giving to people to do the research has been done. It's just a
Well, it's
matter
that,
of compiling it. You shouldn't have to go and pay another one or two agencies or consultants to compile. It's all it really needs to do is be compiled because the information's there.
other cities have done it, and they have started paying off. And cities that you would most likely would think would be likely to be doing what they're doing, they've already recognized it, and they've already made compensation. Right here, this is why I say that they have the advantage of this being a democratic city and a democratic state, a state. So they think that someone has a D beside their name can't be a racist. Which is it's just not true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the kick the can down the road approach, right? And because what happens is they end up moving on, and then the next person comes in and says, "Give me time. I just took this over. And I've got the solution to all your problems, but I'm not going to really have it for you until I leave, and then it's going to be the next person's
It's just
problem to
yeah.
fix it, right?" Like I said, we have a new mayor. People were excited, I guess, about her becoming, but I wasn't, because I watched when I approached her as president of Mamley with a lot of these same issues, and she took no interest in it. She did nothing about it.
Right.
So if she claimed that because she was the president of the council or a city councilor, that didn't enable her, and she needed this power of the mayor. Well, she's been the mayor.
Yeah.
The only thing they've done successfully is give themselves pay raises at the council and all her cabinet people. I'm not saying people shouldn't be compensated for their work, but you see how when it's something that affects them, they can get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so reparations should be a good school where our kids are learning. That should be reparations. How difficult is that? We spend $1.4 billion on it, right? That should be reparations. Right? Housing, right? Healthcare. Those are not luxuries.
No, they're not. They're necessities.
Right.
They're necessities.
Right.
So I don't know, Pastor. What say you this morning? Pastor wants to be at home sleeping. But yeah, it's just I'm not. We don't have any justice because it's just us.
Right. I mean, like I said, COVID gave us an opportunity for things to slow down. The world literally stopped, right? And gave us time to come up with a plan, right? We relied on the system. We went out there protesting, didn't really have a plan. What was the agenda? What was the outcome we wanted to see? Nothing. Now it's like, they break into the programming for a minute, and they give you, then they say, we now return to our regularly scheduled program. That's where we are. We're back to, okay, you know what? Things have not improved. What do we do? Well, we're waiting for someone else to do it. And some folks have just figured that they're going to do for themselves. And there's very few people like us left who actually are not looking behind. Like we have a guest coming on Saturday. He's running against Elizabeth Warren. He's a Republican. It shouldn't be that because you're a Democrat, you look like Governor Baker, who I had a better relationship with. His administration reached out on a regular basis. It was sincere. We were able to make some. So I judge people, not theirs, because I'm an independent, and that's why I registered as independent. I think everyone should be an independent, not being affiliated with any party. You can vote for whoever you want, but you should not commit yourself to a certain group. Then you're stuck.
Right.
Just a question for both of you. Who in the city, other than Ron Bell has gained a lot of visibility around his advocacy for people to vote. Who else in the city is doing a similar work to what Ron Bell is doing? Do either of you know? that's visible, that's getting the recognition, that's getting people out?
No one that I'm aware of, and Ron Bell's
Me
a perfect
neither.
example of someone who has always been out there, just like Priscilla, right? And then when he had that issue that came up with him, how quickly folks abandoned him because it wasn't popular. And honestly, that's when Ron Bell and I became very close, because I went to his court hearing and took the day off from work to support him, not in judgment of him, but knowing exactly what you just highlighted, Pastor, the work that he's done in the community, and now he needed some help. He needed support, right? And folks just walk away. We treat each other in a way that is so dismissive. That's what works on the other side. So to answer your question, I don't know of any organizations. A lot of them have acronyms that claim that that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? And they do it when it's politically advantageous or they're going to get some notoriety from it. But I don't see it. You know, like Urban League, NAACP, these are organizations that historically had partnered with communities. Like the Lawyers for Civil Rights, they've been phenomenal. Yvonne Espinoza and his team, they've been phenomenal in bringing these lawsuits and holding folks accountable. But you get burnt out. Like you passed the wall. People had been doing that, and a lot of folks in your era are no longer here, or they're up in age and they can't do it the way. Should be advisors, right? We haven't really developed a replacement. And I don't mean replacing them that they no longer have any value, but where they can kind of just be advisors.
Right. And I think there goes some of the problems, because there are people who have received money to be advocates and to mobilize the city and community. Years ago, we would have political rallies at the Roxbury Boys and Girls Club with 400 people, motivating them. Charlie Stith and I used to do this together, the voter registration years ago. But I don't see the people who are being paid, or at least have the notoriety, actually doing it. They might hire people to go knock on doors, but they're not doing it anymore. They're not. I don't understand how they're still receiving the state, city, private finances to do the work, and they're not doing it. Our community has no guidance as it relates to the political realm. And my last comment is that I remember Dan Janey, who used to be a member of this church. He was so politically active. He would make sure that every election, whether it be the primary or the final, that we would prepare a brochure in the church. We would prepare a brochure and take some time during the worship service to say, we have an election, these are the people who are running, make sure you go out and vote. What's happening now is that in many churches, most of the people in the churches don't even come from Boston. They come from the South Shore.
Yeah.
Once, when they were in Boston, they were politically involved. They were active. They were involved. When they go to Randolph and Stoughton and other places, they're not involved anymore. And the churches cannot be the catalyst for this anymore, because most of the people in the churches don't even live in the city.
But
and not only that, the churches that are in the city, a lot of them are not connected. Their doors are closed, right? Like you said, that folks come in, they pay their tithes, and they get in their cars at the end of the service, and they move out. They don't see it as a problem. And the church used to be the place, the beacon to attract people when they were having issues. It's very few churches like yourself in existence now who can be in these glamorous big, mega churches.
So why aren't people analyzing all of this data that all of what we're talking about? Why isn't there a team of people who are analyzing this and saying, you know what we did 20 years ago, 10 years ago isn't going to work today. We need a new paradigm. I don't even see meetings to even focus on that. I won't mention names, but I know that there was a young guy who was politically moving people, putting signs out in the neighborhood. We don't even know where he is right now. So what's going on?
No.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, and that is by design, because you get tired, you get burnt out, and you feel like, the people you're fighting for don't want to fight with you. They want to fight you. So you just throw your hands up.
And then as we get older, we have to be able to pass the torch. And
Right.
I think that's what I'm trying to do at Marcus Anthony. I think that's what you're trying to do, Pastor Academy of Broadcasting. And then Larry with this pack coming up. We got to get them excited, but they're only going to get excited if we give them something to be excited about as far as when it comes to voting. Because a lot of them just, they don't know. They're so into they believe everything they see and hear on TikTok. They're always, you tell them to look up somebody famous, right? They go right to their Wikipedia or Google, and they give you like a 2-minute sentence. I just feel like and I'm going to tell you another thing that I noticed working with these young kids. They can't write.